The Meeples and Miniatures podcast is sponsored by Two Fat Lardies, Geek Nation Tours, and by the generous donations of you, the listener. Thank you to everybody for your continued support. The Meeples and Miniatures podcast, episode 202. Armies Army, with hosts Neil Shuck, Mike Hobbs, Mike Whittaker and Dave Luff, and guest Keith Armstrong. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Meeples and Miniatures podcast. I'm Neil Shuck, and on this evening's show I am joined once again by the Welsh wizard himself. It's Mr. Michael Hobbs. Hello, mate.
Hello Meeples, which is my new term I'm going to coin for people who listen to the podcast. They're all Meeples.
They're all Meeplers. I'm not quite sure whether... yes, answers on a postcard.
It'll catch on.
He's hanging with our Meeps in it.
Meeps. Oh, the Meeps. Oh, Meeps is better. Hello, Meeps.
Meeps. Because we're down with the kids.
No, we're not.
No, we're not. Meeps. Okay. And that, of course, were the dulcet tones of our resident cake snatcher himself. It's Mr. Michael Whittaker.
Good evening.
Good evening, sir. You all right?
He started it. You can't expect me not to rise to that line.
It's very true. It's very true. And is the cake still in the fridge?
No.
Disaster.
It got out.
Disaster.
Don't catch it.
It got acid. Because certain people are off chocolate for Lent and we're running out of things that weren't chocolatey.
I've heard some excuses, but in the run of things, that's pretty poor.
Besides, there was probably a finite limit as to how long it would keep, and it was. Thank you, Jonathan. Very, very nice.
Well, we also have on the show the Luffmeister himself, Mr. Dave Luff. Hello, mate.
Hello. How you doing?
I mean, how have you taken that shocking news that the cake has been eaten? So we've got. I mean, the incentive to go and play Dungeon Saga has just halved.
Well, seeing I'm badly swollen at the moment, I don't think there's a chance of me being able to eat any cake anyway.
Beg pardon?
Swollen.
Who misses?
What you had done?
Had 2 teeth pulled, haven't I?
Oh, thank God for that.
Oh, dear, yeah. Trip to Leicester Royal to have one wisdom tooth on the bottom jaw pulled, and the next tooth next to it that it's smashed into and blew into a million pieces.
That's going to hurt at your age, Dave.
Yeah, I mean, imagine what it's going to be like in your age.
Oh, my wisdom teeth were well gone.
So there we go. Yeah, apparently it took quite a lot to knock me out.
Well, you're a big lad.
Apparently they gave me a dose and it wasn't enough, so they gave me a bit more. And apparently the charge nurse said apparently they then decided to knock you over the head with a hammer. So yeah, I'm a bit like that. I feel like I'm coming off the episode of The Godfather or something.
Okay, well, welcome one and all. Nice to have you all on. On this week's show, we're obviously going to be catching up with everything that's been happening in our various hobbies. Yeah, which could be busy. And for the main part of the show, we are chatting to Keith Armstrong from a company called Armies Army, and we'll be catching up with everything he's doing. So, what say you guys? Shall we Shall we get on with it?
Yes,
Nobody
Neil.
lovely that says that.
Yeah, I can't talk very well at the moment.
Oh, right, okay.
He's a bit
All
dribbly.
right. In which case, get on with it.
Get on with it. Okay, we'll take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll be chatting about what we've been up to.
The eagles have gone. Britain lies defenseless in a cruel world. Since the birth of our Lord, it has been 456 years. What sins have we committed to bring this punishment to Britain? I speak, of course, of the Saxons. They came as allies, but now they seek conquest. The lands of the Britons lie ravaged before them. Blood runs red in our island. We need a leader to stand against them. We need a man to bring together the Britons in common cause. We seek a Dux Britanniarum.
Right, that's enough of that. Dux Britanniarum from Two Fat Lardies. They really are very good.
What have we been playing? What have we been buying? We might even have painted something. The Meeples and Miniatures crew reveal all. Welcome back, one and all. This is where we find out what we've been up to over the last week or so. Whose turn is it to go first?
Feeling it might be mine.
Oh, go on then. Well volunteered. Ha!
Yeah. Well done, that man.
On the theory that if somebody doesn't volunteer, we get that embarrassing moment of dead air in which we all virtually look at each other.
I mean, that one that Neil cuts out, so we sound good.
Yes, that one that Neil edited out, so we sound vaguely slick and professional.
Yeah.
What have I been doing? Had a fun game of Full Thrust once more at the club. Dan is running a campaign of which this is session 2, month 2, call it what you want.
Were
We
those
are
painted figures I saw before me?
Relatively. I think they've got,
Was
they've
it
got
what,
an
base
undercoat
coated?
and a bit.
Undercoated.
Base coated, and that's about it. But they look the part, and it's a nice table that Greg down the club painted up for us a while back as well. And us of the New Anglican League got our rear ends kicked. Although I did take great delight in demonstrating just how more manoeuvrable the New Anglican League ships are by getting around the back of their battlecruiser and blowing it to hell. He did sort of wind up in front of my guns at point-blank range, Your Honour. What was I going to do, sir? Not to pull the trigger?
So was that bad flying on his part then?
Their mission was to take out the planetary base. With hindsight, maybe we should have stayed back so we could have hit them with the planetary base guns at the same time. But doing that, the whole point of the NAL fleet is it's really it's fast and manoeuvrable. So I just lit out, did a huge skidding turn around the back of them, and they decided that basically the NSL fleets don't turn as far as the NAL fleets, and they committed what in World War II dogfighting would have been the cardinal sin of turning out of the circle. I appear to have a battlecruiser. Well, you saw the photo on Twitter.
Yes.
They couldn't get much closer.
Very true.
And I did roll 22 hits on 15 dice, which is quite impressive under the system. Basically, it's 4, 5, or 6 to hit. 6 is count double and roll again.
Mm.
So not a Neil Shuck set of dice, those.
If I'd have rolled 15 dice, I might hit you. Yeah, I think I might hit him twice if I was lucky. Yeah.
Yeah. So other than that, I've been prepping for round 2 of the I Ain't Been Shotgun campaign, in which, as I think I may have mentioned previously, the Germans have fallen back to the little town of San Matteo, which they're preparing to defend in the usual annoying German way in Italy, namely a lot. And we'll see how that goes. I'm starting to draw up the big campaign map so I can get a feel for, rather than make stuff up as I go along, so I can get up a feel for how things are going and come up with more interestingly thematic names for towns and cities and the like. I've just ordered a bunch of Frostgrave Barbarians for the club's Game of Thrones campaign, using something we're calling Direwolf Rampant, thanks to Rob, which is a combination of Dragon Rampant and Lion Rampant, basically cherry-picking the good bits to make something that fits in with the Game of Thrones universe. What else have I been doing? Oh, the 3D printer's woken up and printed a couple more buildings, one of which I'm going to have to reprint, I think, because I think I got the design wrong. I've got a commission from somebody for a couple of SDKF9s, and I've been having a first go at designing some roof and window bits that you can stick on a foam core building to make it look less boring.
Ooh, nice.
So that's me. On to my customer.
Oh, me next then. Yeah, I ordered 2 SDKF9s this week from somebody. So that's moving on to what I bought. Yeah. Let's get the paint out of the way first. Then, yeah, we'll go on to anything else. Okay, no painting because I'm still in plaster. 10 days.
No change there. Then? What? You're still plastered?
No painting. Yeah, thanks for that, Mr. Love. Okay.
It was an open goal. I'm surprised Hobbsy didn't kick it in.
I was on mute.
Oh, you mean you were like trying to unmute it?
Yeah, frantically trying to unmute, and you jumped the gun, mate.
Right. Okay. So yeah, still in plaster. So no painting, no modelling. Oh, yeah. 10 days. 10 days. Please let me out of this thing in 10 days. Right, okay. Yeah, let's get the paint out of the way. Yes, so ordered 2 SDKF9 Famos from Mr. Whittaker from Mr. Bergman's wonderful 15mm stuff on Thingiverse because I need a couple of tank recovery vehicles for our Market Lardon game.
Because nothing else is going to shift the Tiger.
Exactly. So, yes, Berg Panthers don't cut it. So, so I thought I'd do it properly and find a Famo with a spade and found one.
Digressing a moment because it's actually relevant to my interests. If the British had to shift a Tiger, if it was say in the way, what would they have used?
They just built a road on the side.
What? Run a Bailey Bridge 300 yards down the road?
Yeah, it's a lot easier.
Yeah, it probably is, isn't it? It was a serious question.
I've no idea. I mean, actually, as an open question, because, and again, I'm much more into German armour than British armour. What was the standard British tank recovery vehicle?
They had a Sherman.
They had a Sherman, but I'm not sure it would shift the Tiger. Oh, I don't know. The beefy up engine, the 5-bank madness that was in the Firefly might.
Plus, they don't have to move that far, just a few feet to get out of the way so they can drive around it.
The problem, I suggest, under normal circumstances, the problem wouldn't have been the Tiger, it would have been the pile of bricks it was under.
Yeah.
Looking at things like Villas Bocage, for example. Again, that boils down to something that keeps getting copped. Was it Nick Skinner we last had that conversation with, where World War II tables are far too clean as soon as you start having a town where it becomes a battleground. There's just, it just becomes heaps. It should be heaps of rubble all over the place.
Yeah. Mm. So the answer to my question, having had a quick Wikipedia, is there were Churchill, Crusader, Centaur, Cromwell, Grant, and Sherman ARVs, including an M4A2 conversion and an M4A4 conversion. One of which had a big 7.5-ton jib at the front and a spade anchor at the back. Okay, apologies for that digression, but it seemed germane to the topic.
Yeah, no. It's a relevant digression, shall we say. Okay, then, I've had a fair few bits and pieces arrive in the post this week. Test of Honour's arrived! Woo! Yeah, lots of boxes of Samurai, as you would have seen if you saw on the vlog, because I did a quick unboxing. Unfortunately, that's about all I can do, because the figures look a bit fiddly to assemble, and chomping at the bit to give that a go, but I think somebody else might be stopping me from putting that together because I've got other things to do. And he's not biting, so I'll carry on.
Is that Dave? Is Dave making you do the things you want to do, you don't want to do, instead of the things you want to do?
Yeah, he will be. He will be. Anyway,
just trying to get him organised, Hobbsy. That's all. It's like herding cats. He decides on these things like a year away, and then like 2 weeks out, I'm like trying to herd him to like go. We really need to get this done, No, got plenty of time. Another month goes by. No, got plenty of time. Another 2 weeks goes by.
Let's change the scenario. Let's do something that we've got the figures for.
It's not that hard, to be honest. If someone hadn't fallen over.
There is that. Anyway, what stupid idiot did that then? So I've got Test of Honor. That looks really good. So I've got pretty much everything sorted for that now. So once Luffy has stopped cracking the whip and I've got everything sorted to Mr. Luff's satisfaction for Market Lard, and I'll be able to put all that stuff together, and things will appear accordingly. So it's all Dave's fault. I may have succumbed at the same time because having looked at and been looking at and playing around with Samurai Mass Battle games, decided that it wasn't enough just to have a play around with some movement bases, but actually needed to get some proper figures. And since I've already got 20mm Samurai, I've just ordered some more 20mm Samurai. So Italieri do some box sets of plastic Samurai. So I've got some of that coming for. So I've got 28mm Samurai and then 20mm Samurai for math battles. So there you go.
You're going to get 6?
It was a close one thing between 20mm and 15mm, but it was simply because I've already got Samurai Battles and the expansions. So I've got a shed load of 20mm figures anyway that I could use for other things. So I might as well just build that up as opposed to starting from scratch with the 15mm army. Although Peter Pig's 15mm Samurai are very nice. Peter Pig's 2 Dragon and Eureka's Samurai are all very, very nice. But anyway, digress. Yeah, I think I may still consider it in 6 because Bacchus Samurai, 6mm Samurai are very nice. And I've put off buying those for more times than I care to imagine. So that was that. Got sent a couple of things. Just say thank you to Jonathan Yingling, and then also to John at Pico Armour. I can't remember which show it was fairly recently. We were chatting about Armies Army War, weren't we? A couple of shows ago.
Yeah.
And maybe doing it in small scale. So John had a word with John, and they've sent me some 3mm. So Pico Armour have sent me some 3mm Arab Israeli War stuff to review. That's very nice. That arrived today. Thank you. And then I don't know if you guys saw, interesting product through from a company called Model Box. It's George at Model Box contacted me and said, "Do you want to have a look at this?"
Yeah, I saw that.
Now, I'd never really heard of subscription boxes until quite recently when Josh was doing one. I think he's off Loot Crate, I think. A company called Loot Crate and they're like geeky gift boxes. And
they're kind of fun actually. I've been very tempted by the Firefly one on a couple of occasions.
Yeah, he has like an anime one where it's got. It usually has a t-shirt and a collectible character in it and some of the merchandise. Anyway, this company Model Box, I'm not quite sure exactly how long the company's been running, but they do a subscription box for miniatures. And he contacted me and said, "Would you be interested in reviewing it?" So he sent me a box and came, and I posted a review of it on the blog at the start of the week. I want to ask you guys actually the question: what do you think of the whole idea? I mean, I must admit, it's not something I would be into. But then again, I've been gaming for more years than you care to, for 30 odd years. So I kind of know what I'm into and what I like. But what do you guys think of it as an idea? Subscription box, and you basically get a mix of miniatures.
Don't think of any use for me. Don't think I'm their target audience. And to be honest, if it isn't shiny enough to entice you, Neil, I don't know. I don't know where the target audience is.
I don't think I do a miniatures one. Sorry.
Well, Mr. Magpie himself.
I don't think I do a miniatures one, but I am sort of tempted by the sort of geeky ones. I think it's nice if you're not seriously into a hobby, but sort of flirt on the outside of a hobby. Then it's all okay, but no, I'm not a miniatures one.
Again, how about you, Mr. Whittaker? What do you think of it?
Not really my cup of tea. I'm slowly trying to move down the Luffy line of knowing what I want. Famous last words. Witness the Night Watch Army. But it's not really. I tried one of the Mantic grab boxes they do at Christmas.
Yeah.
And that was okay, partly because I know I wanted a Kings of War army, and I know I could probably use the sci-fi figures. So it sort of worked out that quite a bit of it was useful, and quite a bit I found people I could give it away to.
Yeah. The
sheer proliferation of possible scales and periods and genres just wouldn't do it for me, I don't think.
Yeah. That's kind of where I was coming from. I mean, I must admit, I think, given our particular demographic, I really don't think we're anywhere near the target audience. Certainly, the feedback that people have very kindly left on the blog and on the Facebook page kind of back up that sort of comment. Whereas it's an interesting point, and and I'm sorry I made the point. If you're just starting out in the hobby and you have no idea what's out there, for example, if all you've known is Games Workshop, for example. So you come from Games Workshop and you don't know anything else that's out there, and you just want to dip your toe into the hobby and say, okay, what's around? Then maybe. But I mean, I was thinking if I'd have spent £24 plus postage, which is what it was, to get that. Okay, just to explain, go to the blog, but just in case Dave hasn't seen the blog, it's okay.
I've seen it.
I have.
Did I hear you right that effectively it's about what you're paying for its price of figures?
If you only buy one box, yes. I actually worked out that postage aside, I reckoned you could get what was in there for somewhere between £22.50 and £23.
And the discount, the quantity discount.
Quantity discount works out, so if you order a year's worth, it basically goes, if you order 3 months, you get £1 off per box. If you order 6 months, it's £2 per box. If you order a year, it's £3. So basically, it ends up being, if you order for a year, you end up getting something like somewhere between 12 and 15% discount.
So what you're effectively saying here is that in order for you to feel like you've got your money's worth, you have to were you to subscribe for a year, you have to find a use for 7 out of 8 figures.
Yeah.
No thanks.
And if what we got was a representation of what you get in each box. I mean, was it this month, April? They're going to be doing. It's based on female miniatures. Okay, so last month was war, so it's World War II. Okay, so if you haven't seen the blog, you got a flat brush, a pack, or a US Airborne Command pack from Bolt Action, 2 paints, a 15mm Puma for tanks, a piece of 28mm resin scenery. I must admit, it's an interesting idea, but I have better uses for £24. Especially,
and I don't think that's any reflection on the potential value of money for the content of the contents. I just don't see how you can produce a box like that, which is successfully going to be all things to all men.
Agreed. I think perhaps the hobby is too diverse and specialised in what people collect.
Yeah, but I suppose the only thing that's in the benefit really is the fact that they don't just stick on one genre. So this month was war. Next month was it bomb and shell? Female shell.
But that's fabulous. But that makes somebody who say only plays World War II completely useless as a target market.
Yeah, but again, I don't think with the markets. I mean, you look at the ones they've done in the past. The first July one was Flesh. August was Suicide Squads. September was sci-fi. So they are sort of mixing on genres. So maybe if you want to get into a different sort of genre that you haven't played.
Genre of the month club.
That's pretty much what it is, yeah.
Oh, yeah, very much. Yeah, very much. Yeah. Now, I mean, if you were a painter or primarily a painter, then I think it's more useful.
Except that if you're a painter of any decent stature, you're not going to want a random version of paint that's probably not in a range that you usually use.
Yeah.
Agreed. Yeah, I mean, what I was basically, what I was aiming at, as I say, I mean, one thing you could do, for example, is you could make a nice vignette or out of the scenario pack and the figures. But unfortunately, interesting idea. Yeah, definitely the wrong market, I think.
Yeah, well, I'd be more interested in the sort of geeky one where you get a T-shirt and a mug and a comic or something. That's kind of fun because it's not a hobby I'm into.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, but thank you all the same to Modbox for sending it over as something I wasn't aware of at all. And
as the saying goes, it's not you, it's us.
Indeed. Definitely.
Yeah.
Pretty much it for buying stuff. I did actually get to play a game this week. Not with Mr. Love. Shock horror. Prick your ears up, Mr. Whittaker. I played D&D board game Temple of Elemental Evil this week.
Ooh, fun!
Well, we had the first couple of goes at it because Mr. Hickman of our gaming group, the man who I appear to have infected quite badly with board game Pokemon
syndrome.
Board game Pokemon syndrome. Yes, saw these. Amongst other things, he saw this Dungeon Bash game and went, "Ooh!" Yeah. And of course, it's a classic, Temple of Elemental Evil, absolute classic. And so pop round on Saturday, and so he's got he's now got this huge table in one of his rooms. If anybody's out there looking for a really good sized, ready-built war games table, IKEA do a fantastic one. Okay, it's in their point dining table range. Okay, and unextended. Okay, I think it's a 6-seater table. Apparently, Dave bought the wrong table by mistake. He bought the bigger one. So unextended. Okay, it's a 6-seater table. It's about 6'2" by 3'6". so absolutely brilliant for board gaming or playing anything that uses most wargaming, in fact, without having to put anything on top of it. Absolutely brilliant. So anyway, so got that set up and played Temple of Elemental Evil. Really interesting game. D20 mechanics, D&D on a board game. What's not to like?
There's always Dungeon Saga.
Indeed.
Good game.
Indeed.
But I have eaten the cake. but as you may have seen from Facebook, there may be cookies.
There may be cookies, indeed.
But they'd be a different batch because I took half of them to work today and they vaporised.
Oh right, yeah, fair enough. Yeah, but no, this this range of D&D board games they do is several classics. So say you've got Temple of Elemental Evil. They do Ravenloft. Got to get Ravenloft. Oh, Ravenloft. Got to get Ravenloft. Legends of Drizzt.
You haven't lived till you played the original scenario though, not for Ravenloft.
Oh, true.
As my GM categorized it, and here we have the party sharing their one remaining hit point between them for the last 2 levels.
I still own it. I've got it upstairs.
It's a brilliant.
It's
It's one of the best pieces of D&D scenario writing there is out there. And it's you can't screw it up because it hurts a lot.
So that's me. Mr. Luff, what have you been doing?
Pulling
Other than-
teeth.
Other than pulling teeth.
Oh dear, God, they're aching now. Well, I've been painting my Brits up, haven't I? And they're done.
You painted another army, Dave.
Yeah, I do paint armies, unlike certain people I know.
Well,
Yeah,
I was going
yeah.
I was going to say that you painted an army in the time it's taken me to kind of half paint.
Hey, what?
It's all right. I've got a unit of big stumpy things sat on my desk in front of me here, which I started painting before you undercoated your Brits.
Oh right, I see. Never mind, That's progress for you anyway. I won't worry about it. Yeah, so the Brits from Plastic Soldier Company, the 15 millers, they are done and are now ready for market larding. So
What are they like, Dave? Are they the more recent ones that aren't the fiddly little 3-piece kits for everything?
yeah, just imagine sort of like the 172s, but in hard plastic, really.
Nice and easy to paint.
Yeah, I'd say they were. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you say that. I mean, I suppose that they were. I mean, I was thinking about this today, actually. Were they easy to paint? And I was just getting on with it, and then all of a sudden they were done, if you know what I mean. So I didn't really notice it. So maybe they were easy to paint, or maybe it was that new head visor that I've bought, or a combination of the two. But yeah, I found them all right to paint. I don't know. Has anyone else painted them? No.
I have a box sitting as part of Operation Build a Battalion of each side for I Ain't Been Shot On, but I haven't actually opened them up to paint them yet. So I was just curious to know what your thoughts were.
Yeah, I mean, there's a hell of a lot of detail on them. I mean, a lot of detail on them that really you're probably not going to need at that level. And
They're
I've never.
PSC. What do you expect?
Yeah, and I never even saw it until I actually got the magnifier that I bought, and then realised that the guys had hand grenades on their belts and what have you.
And oh bleep, I'm going to paint those.
Yeah, well, I noticed that I didn't really because they just disappeared, to be honest.
You can always suggest them with a dot of paint and a bit of ink wash, can't you?
Well, the daft thing was that the hand grenades even have actually got grooves on them, so it's not just a round ball on the side of his kit; it's actually got grooves in it as well.
So nice figures then.
Yeah. I mean, I do wonder because I mean, sometimes you think, well, someone's really gone to lots of effort there to do that, and you're never going to see it. I mean, my eyesight without magnifiers is pretty good, I'd say, but and I can't see them.
I'm never going to see them.
No, well, this is it. I mean, I think it's wasted. I think it's wasted on people with 20/20 vision, let alone anyone that hasn't got quite 20/20 vision.
And yeah, if you look at some of the painting articles on flamesofwar.com, there's people doing SSP dot camouflage on it. What? Are you mad?
Yeah. The thing I did notice actually was that sometimes when I mean, it's probably more recently since I've been doing a lot of 15 mil, that what you think is the correct colour, and really probably what actually is the right colour, when you actually get it on the model, isn't the right colour.
It's usually too dark, isn't it?
It's too dark, or it's too light, or it's just something isn't working.
There's an effect of scale apparently that means that you tend to have to lighten colours as they're viewed from more of a distance. So yeah, which is why taking paint swatches never helps.
Small figures viewed from a distance. This is small. This is far away.
Back in your box. Back in your hutch, Chuck.
He wouldn't know because he doesn't paint enough figures. So
I'm glad you said that, not me.
Yeah. So if in doubt, kick the Brummie.
Yeah. Especially when you can't fight back because you've got a broken arm.
Yeah.
You want to get caught with that plaster? You're a braver man than I am.
He'll probably fall over tomorrow night and do the other one then.
Yeah.
Perfect excuse not to do anything then.
Yeah. Dave, can you drive Neil over here so he can hit me?
So, Luffy, what's you done other than paint figures then?
Paint figures, had my teeth pulled. That's about it, really. Really? I haven't bought anything. Hardly any surprise there. I have been looking at what my shopping list might be if I go to Sloot, and if I do go, that means I'll end up actually buying some stuff this year, which will be the first time in 2 years.
Luffy, the Brent carriers are out. The Brent carriers are out.
Are they out?
Yeah,
they are. They
Nine
are on
of
my
them in a
shopping
box.
list. Yeah,
Nine of them. They do two and 3 inch mortar variants, Ricker's variants, flamethrower variants. What's not to like?
Yeah, you see, that's on my list to do, and I need to do those for Lardy Day. So, this is why I'm like going, Neil, we really need to get our finger out and get this sorted, because I know I've got a load of Universal carriers to paint yet.
And there he is telling me, "Oh no, don't bother buying that Nadrovitz industrial complex. We'll scratch build it.
We can scratch build it just as quick as we can buy it.
Watch this space, folks. This saga is set to continue."
Oh, go and buy it then. You just blown your budget, haven't you? On what's his name? On samurai figures.
Moving on.
You see, the truth hurts, but not as much as jumping on the bike with the saddle missing.
Wise words, Mr. Love. Wise words.
Is that you done, Mr. Love?
I think so.
Okay, fine.
My jaws begin to hurt now anyway, so I'd rather it was.
Right, okay. Right, Mr. Hobbs, what have you been up to, mate?
Painting, nothing. After getting my painting mojo back last week, it's gone again. Just because of work. I've had a game. I went over to Firestorm on Saturday and met up with Ty and Jeff, and we had a game of Over the Hills. Well, I sort of umpired, and Ty and Jeff won. Ty and Jeff played. It didn't go so well for Jeff. Jeff was playing the Brits, and we did the scenario where half the Brits were holding an objective in the centre. Once the reserves came on and all the French attacked. It didn't go so well for the Brits.
Did it not?
No. Not because of Jeff's tactics. His tactics were great. He stood there and waited. But the thing with Over the Hills is it's a D10 game and you need to roll low. And he didn't. And Ty did. It got to the stage where we were right at the last turn. We didn't know it was going to be the last turn. But Ty charged a unit of light cavalry into a full line of British. So the British went to form square when they were being charged. So Jeff had to roll 8 or less on a D10 to go into square, which meant Ty would have just had a round of combat and bounced off. And he rolled a 9. And they didn't go into square, and they stayed in line, and then they did the combat, and Ty rolled a 1 and did 3 hits on Jeff, and Jeff rolled a 9 and completely missed the cavalry, and because he lost by that amount, the British basically were destroyed in one round of combat.
By light cavalry.
It was a perfect textbook display of cavalry running down some British, but because they broke, the unit that were behind them, who were on one fatigue left, lost the fatigue because they saw their friends destroyed, and they routed, which then caused the next unit in the line, which is also on 1 fatigue, to rout, and suddenly the whole battalion just vanished.
And how many times have we said this? British infantry didn't form square when the cavalry were within charge range.
No.
They formed square when the cavalry was over there on the horizon.
Yeah. Well, Jeff did consider that, but unfortunately, Ty had two other battalions of French bearing down on him. So it was a case of, you can go into square now nice and early because the cavalry are over there. But that means you're going to get mullered when the infantry charge you.
And that's how it's supposed to work with Napoleonic combined arms, for Pete's sake.
Yep, it was a perfect example of how it's supposed to work.
That's just how you're supposed to do it.
Yeah, it was textbook.
So Ty is Napoleon. Jeff is
not Wellington.
Yeah, no.
Jeff is the Prince of Orange.
But a good game, and it's great because normally the Brits, they hold really well. But this time, no. Jeff, yeah, it didn't go well for him, so sorry, Jeff. But then we played Tin Star, which is a game that Jeff has been developing. So I forgot to say, hi, Jeff. So yeah, Tin Star is Jeff's Western game, little Western skirmish game, which I've played once before, and it's fun. It's a really good game. You have 2 or 3 figures each. It's very low, low in scale. So you're measuring ammo, you're doing units per turn, you got multiple phases. It's a good game. So he's getting back into developing that. So, personally, I think we need to get him onto the show at some stage, because he can talk us about Ham and Jam as well, and Tin Star. But yeah, a cracking little game, that.
Oh yes, Ham and Jam. Yes, oh definitely.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes,
I'll have to get him on.
Yeah, he's the man behind Ham and Jam. So yeah, we did that. And Saturday was also the Firestorm Bring and Buy sale.
Yes. Which, of course, you weren't going to buy anything at, because you got plenty of stuff to be getting on with.
Loads of stuff to get on with, yeah. Didn't need anything at all. Nothing at all was on my radar. Nothing I wanted. You see, the best thing about the Firestorm Bring and Buy is you can measure it. Whatever was popular about a year to 18 months ago, you're going to see loads and loads of it on the Bring and Buy.
All right. So lots of Frostgrave then.
Yeah, there was a fair bit of Frostgrave, yeah. And there was a guy who had the first edition Battle Law with some of the supplements.
Hang on a second. First edition Battle Law.
Yeah.
But you've got a shed load of second edition Battle Law.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I thought I'd get it for research purposes for the podcast.
Oh, right. Okay. So what was there then?
It was the core box, the 2 figures that came with, the Hill Giant and the Air Elemental.
Earth Elemental, yeah.
Yeah, that one, and the Call to Arms expansion.
Oh, right, yeah, which is the scenario expansion. Yeah, cool.
Yeah. And there was some other stuff in it as well, I think. It's a pretty full box, and I got the whole lot for £50.
Oh, wow. That was a good deal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good shame.
So what do you think?
It's very nice.
Because I've been banging on about it for ages as being it's my favourite. It's pretty much my favourite Command and Colours variant. Yeah. What do you think of it?
It's quite interesting. I haven't had a good look through the rules yet, but I've had a flick through. The production quality is quite nice. The figures are quite fun. Yeah, I need to sit down and go through the rules, but it looks like everything's in there.
Scenery and stuff, the scenery and the boards and everything is all the card stock is, and the artwork on the cards is brilliant. It's really nice.
Really, really nicely done. I'm going to be good though, and not go mad on the expansions.
Wait, you'd have to go mad because, as I say, they're not really around anymore, so that might be expensive.
Well,
heard and witnessed.
Go on, Mike.
I said heard and witnessed.
Oh yeah.
So when you do,
well, I mean, there is one of the expansions on Amazon for £15. The Scottish War ones.
Oh, that's quite fun. Yeah, you get dwarves riding hairy coos.
Oh, yeah.
Dwarf cattle riders, got to be done.
Yeah. So I mean, look at that, because the rest of them are about 50-60 quid for an expansion. I mean, I'm not paying that, but £15, I might be tempted for research purposes only.
For research purposes, of course.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I obviously added to Annie's profit margin by buying one of her figures. She had a Medusa figure from it's the Otherworld one, Otherworld miniatures.
Oh,
yeah, she had that for £2.
Oh, it's nice.
Yeah, and that's been me.
Cool.
Yeah, quite a quiet week.
Quite a quiet week, except for the fact that Battle. Yeah. Fabby, right. Well, thanks for that, chaps. Yes, okay, what we'll do, we'll take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to be chatting with Keith Armstrong from Armies Army. This is a message from The Cranky Lawyer. Huzzah! Please plan to join us for 3 great days of the best our hobby has to offer. Beautiful tabletops, challenging scenarios, board games, a wonderful variety of gaming-related shopping, and great company. Huzzah! May 19th to the 21st, 2017, South Portland, Maine. miniatures games, board games, tournaments, vendors, raffle and great company. Join us for 3 days of fun. If you want to learn more about shoutouts, visit our Patreon page. The link is on the website. We hope that you're enjoying this episode of the Meeples and Miniatures podcast. If you are, would you like to support us? There's a couple of ways of doing so. You can become a patron of the show by supporting us on our Patreon page. There you can give regularly every time we produce a show. Alternatively, you may want to give a one-off donation, and you can do that by using PayPal. For more details on both these options, please click on the Donate tab on our website, www.meeplesandminiatures.co.uk. Have you ever wondered what's going on in wargaming? We do too. So come with us as we go behind the hobby with the Meeples and Miniatures interview. We'd like to welcome to the Meeples and Miniatures podcast Keith Armstrong from Armies Army. Hi Keith, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you very much for having me.
Great to talk to you, thanks for coming on. Keith is from Armies Army, which is a relatively new company. How long's it been going, Keith?
Oh, it's been going 7 years, but
so
it's only the last...
So not really new at all then?
No, not that new. But it's only just only really started to expand in terms of Cold War historical history stuff this last couple of years.
It really came on my radar when you did your Cold War British and Russian Kickstarter, which ran probably 18 months, 2 years ago now. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that was the first entry into the Cold War period for sure.
Obviously, Keith is a new guest on the show, and as regular listeners will know, the first thing we do with our new guests is find out a little bit about their gaming background. So, Keith, can you take us through how you got into gaming?
Yeah, I can. I guess that it was as a young kid with your Airfix kits and toy soldiers and that sort of never really went away. After a period of university and travelling with work, I ended up in the States for a year and I started playing Dungeons and Dragons of all things with some guys at work.
Oh, cool.
And then that sort of led on to Games Workshop, Warhammer type stuff. And then literally I came back to the UK and I read a book on holiday by Harry Pearson. Which was about Actung something or another, Zimmerman, I can't remember what it's called.
Yeah.
Actung Swinehut.
That's the one, yeah. So I read that on holiday and I thought to myself, you know what? There's a whole world of historical stuff out there and ancients, basically, which I had no idea really existed. And so I quickly dropped the Games Workshop related stuff and started playing, 15mm sci-fi with Ground Zero Games, and I started getting into ancients and historicals, and I discovered a multitude of clubs local to me, one in Guildford. And I joined the Guildford Club, and that was it. I never looked back. Much to the aghast of the wife. As always.
Excellent stuff. So how long have you been gaming then?
So gaming-wise, probably actually not that long, really, compared to many people. So I must have come back from the States when I was about 35. So about 12 years, 15 years.
That's getting back into gaming. From a professional point of view, what's your day job?
I am actually I work for a oil and gas exploration company.
Oh, cool.
Although I'm just about to change actually, and so I manage a development team.
Right, so that's a bit. All right, so that's a
It is
bit
very, very
different from
different,
from sculpting model soldiers.
It
Then.
is, which is why I enjoy it quite so much because my job's quite intense at times, and political and intense. Whilst getting away from it and just either casting and gaming in my spare time or hobby time, it's a very nice stress reliever.
So, how did you get into sculpting and casting in the first place?
Well, one of the guys at my club in Guildford owned Black Hat Miniatures, Mike Lewis.
Oh, yeah. I know Mike.
Yeah, and I've got good friends, and he literally lives around the corner from me. And so he's got his own business, and I was got more interested. And I was sort of looking at Ground Zero game stuff, and I really love it, and I still do. And I just thought to myself, you know what, I quite fancy this, So I sort of thought, I worked out how much it was going to cost. Might help me an awful amount, and I produced my first range of sci-fi figures, which are more like near future, and they were known as Rusk, and they sort of did quite well, and they sort of got quite a good reputation. And from that, it just really grew. I just did a little bit as and when I made a little bit of profit. I ploughed it all back in,
Mm-hmm.
and I continued, and I grew that range into quite a large 15mm sci-fi range, and then I sold it to Brigade because it basically got to the point where I was eating into my hobby time,
Right.
and it was also becoming more and more complex. I had a Trenti spin caster, which is quite cool for the odd casting, but when I was casting for shows and for masses and masses of casting for orders, it was just, it was taking me days and days and days to do. And I just thought, you know what, I can't do this. So I sold my figure range or my infantry range off to Brigade, who did quite well with them. And I sort of thought, right, I'm going to spend that money wisely. And then within about 6 months, I'd bought some more sci-fi miniatures, and I'd started again. As you do. Yeah, and then it came on the market, an old Saunders spin caster, and it was in a bit of a bad shape. And I bought that, and I had a local engineer do it up, and then lo and behold, spin casting of figures became so much more easier and so much more pleasant. And so it sort of kicked off again.
Okay, so essentially, producing miniatures is a hobby as opposed to a full-time job.
Oh yeah, completely. Yeah, no, this is all in my own spare time, and orders and packing. That now that I'm getting a bit bigger, the wife is she looks after the kids, but she also spends a lot of time helping me pack and do my orders and stuff. So at the moment, yeah, it's a fine balance. I've got no hobby time anymore, unfortunately, but I do really enjoy this. So this is still my hobby.
Let's come on to Armies Army itself. Okay, first question: where'd you get the name from? Because it is quite unusual.
It is Armstrong, but I many years ago in my school quiz, we had a quiz team in the sixth form, and my teacher, we hadn't bothered putting the name down, and he picked the name Armies Army.
Oh, okay. Yeah, okay, yes.
Armstrong, and my nickname was Army when I played football, so it turned into that, and it's just stuck. And so when I sort of thought about making actually a company name, that came to my head, and it stuck.
Okay, cool. Right, so looking at your website, which is armiesarmy.com, people, right, so we've got currently Cold War and sci-fi. So which came first?
The sci-fi came first, yeah. So that came first, and like I say, I had about 4 different varying ranges, with a made-up sort of background to it. And eventually, I sold those all on, and I kept the vehicles. But since then, I sort of grew the infantry a little bit more. But then, in my sort of, this is like 7 years ago, so I desperately wanted to do moderns and Cold War. But
Right.
7 years ago, there was just no interest. I did a load of renders of some Norwegian Chaffee tanks and Leos, and I had about one person go, yeah, I'd like them.
Mhm.
on TNP and all the usual places. And I thought, I'm not going to put any money in that. There's no point.
Yeah.
And so I didn't. But then, the Cold War seems to have kicked off with Team Yankee and other rules, and people are clamouring for it, which is nice.
So it's very much a case of you wanted to do the range, but were kind of like waiting for the right time to do it, as opposed to something like Team Yankee coming along and then going, oh, okay, I'm going to do Cold War then. Yeah.
Oh no, I mean most of these stuff most of the renders I had in some way or another partly done, especially the APCs and stuff like that. No, I had most of them already done. I just didn't think there was a market, and because I'm investing everything I make from Armies Army into it, which isn't particularly a lot. I was waiting on an opportunity really.
So it sounds like you started with digital sculpting as opposed to traditional manual sculpting, yeah?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, my first set of figures were done by, and most of the others were done by Martin Baker. Who's he's very talented and he's very reliable, and he's very good with his poses, etc. And I've really enjoyed his stuff, especially with Ground Zero games. So he started off doing most of them, but I started doing out of a cost cutting and necessity, learning to how to convert them. So I've done some of the heads and changed weapons and added additional webbing and things like that. So I had to sort of self-taught myself really how to do that, and then I did the same thing with the 3D modeling. I had a couple of guys build some items for me. I sort of learned how they did it and then use those components to build on, and then I just grew. And nowadays there's so many free applications, there's so many tools that allow you to hide any of the mistakes and make things easier in terms of 3D printing. And the fact that you can 3D print now, in just over 8 hours, you can have your model. It's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
So I just got into it that way.
Well, so you're saying you started sculpting 7 years ago. So were you even looking? How long have you been doing actual digital sculpting? Is it for since those 7 years?
Yeah, it's just those 7 years or so,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't really do an awful lot. Yeah, it's basically. The beauty of 3D is that once you've made a component, it can be reused over and over and over. With modifications, and even just scaling sometimes makes it look completely different. So it's I've sort of learned, not so much learned to 3D model, I've learned to convert 3D models, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And I've got a big range now, so the more you add to it, the easier it gets, because most of these sort of Soviet tanks, they're all built on the same chassis and same turrets, etc., etc.
Yeah, I mean that is one interesting thing. I mean, especially given, we'll talk about the Cold War period in more detail in a minute, but obviously there were so many vehicles where they've basically taken the same chassis and then done 6-7 different variants. It's ideal for that sort of thing, isn't it, I suppose? Yeah,
it is, absolutely. You've got the basics like the M1113, and there's about 20 different models of that, even with just turret changes, with whether it's got a cannon in it or a heavy machine gun, it naturally supports 3D modeling, I think.
So you've said that you do the sculpting yourself and you do the casting yourself. Are you also making the molds up yourself?
No, I'm not. So I use a varying people to make my metal molds. I haven't got a vulcanizer. Plus, it's one of those secret arts.
It's a black art.
Exactly.
Yeah.
To get it right and balanced right and cut right in the air, fleet and etc. etc. Yeah, and I also don't do my resin simply because at the moment I haven't got the time. This is like hobby. It's expanded quite rapidly, so I can get away with the casting. I do flexible hours, which always helps. So I have every other Friday off in effect. So I have a full Friday every other Friday, and then weekends, etc. And so yeah, and I would love to do it, but at the moment, unfortunately, I've got to pay bills, and hobby comes second.
Yeah.
Understandable. Okay, so you were redoing your sci-fi infantry for the umpteenth time.
Yes, I am.
Yes, and then, as you said, a couple of years ago, and I first became aware of you when you popped up on. It was on Kickstarter, wasn't it? Doing
It was, yeah.
Doing British Cold War.
That's right.
So you suggested that, obviously earlier you wanted to do it, but there wasn't a demand. So at what point did you decide, right, okay, let's do this? Why go with Kickstarter, and how did it all go?
Yeah, well, the beauty of the Kickstarter is that you judge the demand from it, and I still wasn't entirely convinced. And I knew Team Yankee was on the horizon, but the Fate of Nations didn't do particularly well for them, so I wasn't even sure that was going to do well.
Yeah.
And so I just thought, you know what, the safest bet is Kickstarter. They take a element of the cost, cost to run it, obviously. But I thought, given the the uncertainty, I'll do it that way. And once I started, I realised pretty quickly within the first few hours when I met my goal that I was on for a good thing with it.
Yeah, because it kind of took off, didn't it?
Yeah, it did. And again, it's so difficult not to continue and to keep pushing it because you want to do more and more. But it was getting to the point towards the end where I had a considerable amount of British vehicles, and the Soviets were included in it as well, the VDV, that I sort of started to hold back a bit because I simply wouldn't have been able to produce it in time. And when I know there's quite a few people have blown Kickstarters by, over expanding and not being able to deliver. And that's the one thing I didn't want to do. In the end, it turned out that, I was still a little bit late, unfortunately, for some of the guys. It turned out quite successful, and it helped me invest in my next range as well.
Cool. So what did you actually end up producing off the back of that Kickstarter?
Chieftain, Challenger, the FE432, the Spartan, the BTRD, the BTRD Nonna, which is the mortar one, all the British infantry, HQ, heavy weapons, such as Blowpipe, Milan, Ferret, armoured cars, Land Rovers, Zoo 23-2, guns, all the Soviet infantry that you would expect in a airborne platoon and company, mortars, the usual stuff to go with it.
Yeah.
So quite a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. And multiple variations of each of those as well.
So basic packs are obviously starting with British infantry and Russian VDV, rather than, there is some Russian infantry in there, but yeah, it was primarily airborne, wasn't it? Yeah,
there's mostly based around. I picked winter uniforms, so they're all a little bit bulkier. Because Martin Baker's style is a little bit bulkier because they're a little bit more detailed, but there's a cost to that. Yeah. And also that I didn't want to clash with Team Yankee in terms of what they were producing. I thought it was a wise thing to do something slightly differently, hence why I did them in the VDV and why I did them in the winter uniform. And to be honest, they're easily used as your standard Soviets in winter uniform anyway.
Yeah, because obviously, at the time, I know they've been producing, Team Yankee have expanded since, but obviously at the time you ran it, obviously, Team Yankee were basically Russians in standard uniform and Americans.
That's right, yeah.
So yours was doing something completely different, wasn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And and it was just always in the back of my mind. I didn't want to go against, the big boys, so to say, especially if we both releasing at the same time. It's my opinion's a bit different now on that, but at the time, I thought to myself, I'll be safe.
Yeah. Now, since then, you obviously looked at expanding the Cold War range, but you decided not to go back to Kickstarter, but do kind of your own thing.
That's right, yeah. So the Kickstarter gave me a bunch of ideas, and it was really quite cool, but they took something like 15% of the cash. And when you're working on such small margins, and the room for error is minimal in a Kickstarter because you've got to entice people by offering a little bit more, albeit that most people were just there because they wanted to see British in the end. I decided that I would look at my own solution, because I thought if I start to expand, if I start to do more and more Kickstarters, to see there's the market and also to fund it, I thought, you know what, I can do this. So I started looking online, found some tools, built my own website, and built my own what I call kickoff tool, which allows me to do exactly what a crowdfunder does, and the same safety mechanism, i.e. PayPal. If it doesn't fund it, people get their money back, immediately. So I decided to give it a go, and that's what I've done with my latest Canadians and Dutch crowdfunder.
Okay, so that ran until middle of February, didn't it, this year? Okay, so one has to ask, why Canadians and Dutch? Although having said that, I suppose that it kind of answers the question itself, because they are two forces which not an awful lot of people do, are they?
No. Again, I did the VDV and I did the British because I still want to do what I want to do. As much as I grow, I do what the market wants a little bit more, or play to that market. I still wanted to do what I wanted to do, and I had, some friends, and we talked around Canadians, and we talked around how common their kit was. So the M1 helmet, the SLR rifle, and they look like Dutch, and they look like Belgians, and they look like the Danes. In fact, they look like the Norwegians, but with the exception of the rifle. Yeah. So the principle being that if I can have enough people who would want the Canadians and the Dutch, then I can then go on to build additional forces using the same figures as dollies. Most of the weapons and the vehicles are the same. So the fact that I've gone with the Dutch and Canadians, they've got a couple of little variances, but I can now quite quickly, hopefully, pull out and do the Danes and Belgium as well.
And I suppose because it's, I'm probably talking heresy here, but because it's 15mm, conversion is easier than 28 because of obviously the reduction in detail, yeah?
Absolutely. I mean, you will notice that those forces will have a slight webbing change, but you know what? Most of them used ex-British kit or, the same 58 pan webbing, and it's at that scale. I'll be shocked. I will get people tell me that webbing is incorrect, and they'll be right to some degree. But even in any picture that you look at of Canadian Dutch, if someone can show me a consistent picture of the same webbing in the same position with the same NBC kit and stuff like that on, or whether they've got ammo packs or not, I'll be very surprised, because the variation's massive even within their own units. So I thought to myself, you know what, I quite like the sound of doing these, so I did.
Oh, so it's literally a case of turning around and going, right, okay, we can do this, because once I've produced Canadians and Dutch, I can then produce all these other Western European forces with, at the end of the day, all you need to do is just change your camo patterns and those other bits and pieces, yeah?
Yeah, I mean, even the one thing I'm going to be doing is that the common infantry who carry the SLR looked identical. However, they may have had a GPMG, or one might have like an MG3. So I will change the heavy weapons, or the light machine gun. I will change the anti-tank weapon, and I'll do a HQ which is specific to that force. Because some had Uzis and some had blindside anti-tank guns and literally a bazooka. So I'll do all of those separately, but the common infantry will be the same.
Cool.
But that's the plan. One day.
Okay, so the kickoff was successful. Let's say ended middle of February. So what exactly are you producing as part of that range now?
Right, so I am doing 2 Leo 1 tanks, the C1 Canadian and the 1V Dutch, which are basically based on I think it's the 1A3 and the 1A5, with a couple of slight differences. And then I've got the standard APC, which is the M113, but then I've got the YPR765 and the YP408, which is like the really peculiar Dutch wheeled APC. Right. And then variants like the mortar and the anti-tank versions of that, which again are pretty much a guy stood on the top with a tow or with another anti-tank weapon. And then I'm also doing recon Land Rovers. Again, they pretty much had very similar vehicles, and that YP765 can be used for varying other ones, such as Belgium, I believe, and I've got a Scimitar, which can be used for Belgium. The Land Rover can be used for both. It's one of those things of maximising the model to as much as you can.
Yeah, and as we discussed earlier, I mean, obviously, it's like going back to potentially expanding your British range, for example. There were so many vehicles that were based on either the 432 or the Striker chassis, for example.
That's right, yeah. So from the 432, I've already got now a 436, which is the command variant, and then I've got a 438, which has the swing fire on it, and I've got the mortar version, and I've got the Abbott, which is based pretty much on the same chassis and a few variations to it. So again, it's I'll make as many variants of each one as I can if people want them.
You're obviously now working on the Canadians and Dutch. Is it going to be a case of then, okay, once that is been completed, then you'll go back and say, okay, guys, what do you want next?
Yeah, pretty much so. I think I've got a plan, I think, in place. Alongside that, I'm doing the East Germans, so I've got a T-55 and the BTR-60 in their infantry, and there's been some delays in that due to my sculpture has been unwell, unfortunately, but also just a lot of other stuff going on, and real life type stuff, work, that type of thing. Yeah, so after that, I think I'm going to be moving back into Scandinavia again. And I think our good old Swedes and Norwegians and Finns, they need a good makeover. And again, I'm hoping either run it via kickoff, or if I feel quite confident, I'll just go and release it as per normal.
Yeah. Because that's quite a good segue actually, because alongside what you've been doing on the miniatures front, you're also starting to dabble in publishing, aren't you?
That's right, yeah. I've got again, just from talking to the community, and before I really started getting into the British now, I started helping out a couple of guys working on some of their rules or some of their scenarios. One of them was originally for Force on Force, which never really progressed, and then myself and Jason Wise, the writer, got together and we were play testing, and we thought, you know what, we could probably, not let this go to waste. Let's publish it. And so that's what we did. So Jason created all the scenarios, and we did a lot of the research and play testing. And I did all the graphics and maps, and then released it. Yeah, which was to quite good success.
That was under the RAM Company Games.
That's right. Yeah. So that's Jason's little company that he runs, and he's going to continue to develop that, and I'll support him and publish the stuff with him. Yeah, and we'll continue to do that, and they sort of match my figure range, which is pretty cool. Pretty much on purpose, to be honest. And the next one coming out from Jason and myself is going to be based around the Berlin Brigade.
Oh, cool. Okay, so the first one was called Red Star White Lights.
That's right. Yeah.
Which was the Russian invasion of Scandinavia, wasn't it?
Correct. Yeah, absolutely. So I had the Norwegians and Swedes trying to fight off the Russian horde with the American British Marines reinforcements.
Yeah, so I mean, lots of varied scenarios, and actually all levels of scenarios as well, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was from some sort of very small skirmish. We mentioned one earlier around the prince trying to get out of the country, the Swedish royal family trying to escape, and some Russians trying to stop them. It was quite a little fun one to play. And then there's quite a few ones with some, quite a few MBTs involved and things like that.
You mentioned Berlin Brigade. Okay, can you give us some more information on what you're working on with that then?
Yeah, I can. I mean, Jason, we've just got the first draft, and we'll be starting some play testing in the very near future, hopefully in a week. So we'll start creating some of the maps to go with it, and it's basically, it's the life of the Berlin Brigade over a week period, scenario set over a week period, where they've got to hang on as long as they can with the Soviet and the East German hordes trying to get rid of them.
Oh, cool.
So it'll be similar format, multiple scenarios. There'll be little Orbats or little toe for the organisation and the units, and a little background around them. Quite a bit of information around the Berlin Brigade itself, and hopefully there'll be a significant amount of figures for myself, including some of the unusual vehicles like the FV432 with the the cannon turret that looks a bit like a scimitar turret on top of it.
Oh,
so that's in the middle of production as well to go with it. Got some open top Land Rovers with wombats on the ready, and so they'll all fit quite nicely into a British Berlin Brigade.
cool. And I notice you're also looking at producing a set of rules.
Yeah, no, the rules are again another good friend of mine. We've been looking at creating we haven't been looking at it. We have created it called Cold War 3, which is basically a Flames of War style company to regiment level combined arms game. I would call it Flames of War on steroids, as it also includes a lot of things that Flames of War really didn't do in Team Yankee in terms of rules for. Or better rules for helicopters and aircraft that loiter on the table. There's a bit more modern complexity around armour and weapons. There's a lot of emphasis on it's not what you're firing, it's how good you are or how good the troops you're trying to shoot at is.
Yeah.
In terms of if you penetrate, you penetrate. With the weapon, you're in a bit of trouble if you do. And Dean and myself have been working around that. So it's got chemical and nuclear, it's got engineers involved. Again, there's quite a few additional expansions in the fray for that, including the MVA and the British for different periods and the Soviets in different periods. Yeah, and they've been out for a little while now, but I've just we modernised it a little bit and updated the PDF, and it's now for sale.
I've noticed when you look at the cover, that you say it's compatible with Flames of War.
That's right, yeah.
It uses the same army lists.
It can do, yeah, absolutely. It provides its own army lists too, which is a little bit more realistic, a little less, what's the word I'm looking for? Flames of War.
Gamey?
Yeah, gamey, trying to sell stuff, basically. And fair play to that. No, this is a little bit more realistic in terms of the Orbat and that, I think. And it takes, proper company, platoon level Orbats, and there's options for it.
I was going to also say that one of the things I noticed is you've started putting up some rules-friendly packs on the site. So you've got
that's right. So
is that something that you're planning to expand? Because at the moment you've only got sort of two packs there. You've got the Afghanistan air assault packs and the heavy weapons pack. That's something that you can really extend, isn't it?
It is, absolutely. And the main reason I haven't done more yet is just because of time. I'm trying to find the time to do everything. But no, I'll be definitely doing the British. I'll definitely be doing the East German when they come out, Canadians, and Dutch. I have to be a little bit careful because I got into a little bit of trouble because I published a series of Team Yankee cards on my blog, which were created by the user World. However, Flames of War didn't take to it quite so nicely, so they asked me to remove those, which I did. Albeit I don't really think there was much in terms of IP, but that's another argument story. So I will be continuing that, and I'll also do some more for the Cold War 3 rules. Sabre Squadron is another fantastic set of rules. Again, my limitations, my time.
Yeah, I suppose. The other thing that you could do with that is with the scenario book that you created is literally having packs of the armies that you require for each of the scenarios.
That's exactly the plan. Yeah, absolutely. And as soon as that's why I want to do the Scandinavians next, because as soon as I get those, then I should be able to generate and produce full packs for each of those scenarios, including some special characters if need be, like the prince and the royal family and stuff, just for a bit of fun.
That'd be good. Yeah. It's the case of making it as easy as possible for us as war gamers to actually get into a new set of rules or into a scenario book. Because a lot of time you end up sitting there going, "What do I need? Where do I get it?"
Yeah, exactly. Plus, me and Dean, the author, we're in the middle of setting up some video tutorials for the rules. So we'll do some YouTube type shots of how the rules actually play out. Because I know no matter how many times you read a set of rules, you can always read something different to how it's meant to be. I always find anyway. So it's just a simple conclusion of some basic maneuvers and moves in the YouTube video should help, and we're planning on doing that soon too.
Yeah, it all helps just getting the word out there, isn't it? The more stuff you
exactly, absolutely. Marketing is key.
Yeah, so it's funny when you say that you had Battlefront come down on you because of doing the Team Yankee stuff. This part of me thinks, well, stuff and just push your own rules, your own figures.
Exactly.
And then if people who are playing Team Yankee see what you're doing, they might jump, or they might just sort of say, well, I've got figures already. I can pick up these rules.
Yeah, absolutely. I hope so. I mean, the reason I was doing it, to be quite frank, was because I had people, ex-Canadian Army guys, contacting me going, "This is the Orbat, and this is what I've done for Team Yankee." And I'm going, "Well, why haven't you been showing us off? This is brilliant." And they go, "Oh, well, I haven't done that." I said, "Well, I'll just stick them on my site for you, and forward people to it." It wasn't even directly on my shop. It was on, an associated blog. Yeah, that obviously that they're watching me now, which is which is scary. But also, it means I must be doing something right, I guess. With the expansion of my troops into Cold War, I'm certainly getting a lot more communications from other raw manufacturers or other companies who aren't particularly happy. But there you go.
So, do you prefer producing the historical stuff to producing the previous sci-fi ranges?
Well, yeah, I think I'm one of those people that's like project based, and so I don't quite finish the project, and I have that many of them that eventually I'll get back round to it again. So it's almost like a new project. So currently the whole Cold War, I can't get enough of it. I love it. It's something I wanted to do many years ago. But every time I go on one of the forums and I see something cool in sci-fi, I think to myself, "Ooh, that tempts me again." And I've only really got one infantry force at the moment, and I always say to myself, if I create anything, I should create something to fight as well. And so I think in the near future, you'll probably see more stuff from sci-fi again. I'm investing in a 3D printer very soon.
Oh, right, okay.
Which will hopefully allow me to churn things out much, much quicker, and at much more, scalable cost, which is good.
Okay. So are you going to be using that for producing your masters, or?
Yeah, masters, yeah, because it's a Form 2 I'll be using probably, which is quite an expense in terms of resin, but it will simply be used for the base of the master. Even with 3D printing, it as good as it's got, I still make modifications with green stuff and plasticard if need be, for undercuts and stuff like that. So, I've had to learn that because I've learned as I've created models that what works and doesn't work.
Yeah. Cool. So, I suppose, considering that investment, you were saying this is a hobby?
Yeah.
It sounds like it's starting to get a little bit out of hand.
Yeah, quite possibly. But the wife is actually helping quite a lot, and like I say, I do a lot of flexible time, so I do a lot of hours in a shorter amount of days, which gives me time to do more stuff at another time. But you're right; I'm at that level now whereby my production, will need to be outsourced, I think. and I'll have to get more people doing stuff for me. Yeah, I simply don't have the after my Canadians and Dutch come out, I'll simply be passing out more of my stuff to other people, which is it's got pros and cons. Cons, it doesn't make me as much money, but pros and that I have time to do stuff.
Yeah. So okay. So is your primary interest in the designer models as opposed to the whole production and that sort of thing?
Yeah, I think it's fair to say that's true. Yeah, just absolutely. I think so. Yeah, without a doubt. As much as casting and it's actually quite therapeutic considering my rest of my day job, and that element is quite enjoyable. In fact, the detail of having to publish and market it and answer people's questions and packing, to go down to the post office, that all takes quite a bit of time. I spend, I don't know how much. I've got my own couple of little private groups with quite a large community, which help me with my research and the modelling element of it, and that's the bit I absolutely love. I love chatting to the guys. Some of them are ex-forces. In fact, most of them are, and they give me little details of, although that's what you see in the photos, that's not what actually happened. And so I try to, put as much in as I can, given the fact that it's 15mm and given the fact that it's got to be castable. But I do try to incorporate all that stuff. Yeah, so the communication stuff and chatting with, the guys and the hobby is the bit I love the most.
Cool. Now, looking at Cold War 3, it does say, 1960 to 1990, which covers, let's just say, multitude of conflicts.
It does. It does.
Is it one of these things that you're kind of saying, right, okay, let's see how things go, and we'll revisit different conflict? I don't know if we'll potentially maybe look at Arab Israeli, or maybe look at Iran, Iraq, or what have you, depending on how things go.
That's exactly the plan. So Dean's already started to work on varying, be a bit more specific in terms of, 1980 Soviets, for example, and early British, and then he's looked at Israelis for Yom Kippur, and all these things. We're going to start trying to be a bit more niche and provide a few more additional rules, but more importantly, come up with the correct numbers in terms of how good one tank against another tank is and things like that, and how important the crew were in terms of training. Yeah, so we're definitely going to be doing that. That's one of the key sort of ideas that me and Dean want to push.
Cool. But as I say, at the same time, notice that you stop just short of First Gulf War, so you don't start getting involved in, because obviously kit evolved and just changed massively
exactly.
Well, basically in the last 20 years, it's just changed completely, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, because again, this is where 3D modelling comes in great. The Centurion tank, that was around until God knows when, with varying modifications to it. The T-55 was around for a long time, BTR, but you're right. As soon as it became like late 85, early 90, the IFG fighting vehicles all sort of turned up. Challenger 2, very different tanks turned up, and there's less use for the older stuff then. But we want to do Angola Bush Wars. We've talked about doing as early as the Malaya campaign and things like that.
Oh, cool.
If we had an indefinite amount of money and I didn't have to work, we'd have a lot of fun.
Well, yes, but obviously, I suppose it's at the point where you get that kind of trade-off between, well, it's a hobby, it doesn't quite pay the mortgage at the moment, sort of thing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so I'm open to suggestions around, people help me out and stuff like that. That wasn't me trying to sell Armies Army, by the way. Not unless it's for millions. Somehow I don't think so.
Yeah.
What did I?
So If you listen to this Battlefront, he'll sell for $1.5 million.
And a packet of crisps.
Yeah. As long as I get 10%, mate, okay?
Yeah, deal.
Cool. So basically, lots more to look forward to from Armies.
Yeah, I hope so. And like I say, I've got a few things in the fire, and hopefully a few. I've got some. What's the word I'm looking for? Some creative ways of keeping production going. Hopefully,
like obviously with your plans with the East Germans and Scandinavians and stuff. I mean, that sounds like enough to keep you busy for I don't know what 18 months, 2 years.
Yeah, yeah, probably. I mean, from a production for sure, yeah. But the fact that I get all my resin cast out of house and I'm just doing a metal casting, I think I can probably squeeze a bit more in.
Cool. So,
hopefully, my wife's not listening to this.
It sounds like in that case, then we're going to have you back at some point in the non too distant future to talk about what's next on the horizon from here.
Yeah, that'd be
Cool.
excellent. I'd love to.
Cool. Great stuff. Well, Keith, it's been great to chat. As you said, we look forward actually to get you back on the show to have a look at Cold War 3 in much more detail. But in the meantime, I mean, thank you very much for coming on the show. It has to be said, I mean, Keith has very kindly sent me a care package. Although, I mean, it's a bit more like drug pushing, to be honest. Because I had a look at this stuff. It's gorgeous.
Thank you very much.
I mean, I don't know if Keith's aware, but I mean, Luffy certainly knows because we played with it. I put together. We were doing Cold War in 3mm a few years ago at club, and I put together British Army the Rhine, I think the 2nd Armoured Division, in 3mm, but essentially 1-to-1 scale with all the vehicles, and I had a while of a time doing all that. Looking at everything that's in here, it brought it all back, and it was like, oh. Started looking through everything, and it was like, oh, I can start doing this in 15s. What do you reckon, Mr. Luff?
Could be dangerous, couldn't it?
15mm Cold War. What do you reckon?
Well, on top of all the other projects.
Maybe
we've
Dutch,
got.
Canadians, Soviets, VDV, and Brits. That'd be a good start.
That sounds like a good start to me. Yeah, Dave, something to do in our spare time. Cool. Well, Keith, wish you all the very best with Armies Army. We hope it continues to go great guns. And we look forward to seeing what you got for us, and especially with all these wonderful Scandinavians and stuff you're bringing out. I want to go back to very quickly mention the Red Star White Lights scenario book. That is superb. I believe I reviewed that for Miniature War Games when it first came out, and there are some fantastic scenarios in that, and it's just a great little what if war. So kind of getting all the figures together for that would just be brilliant.
Yeah, no, that was. I mean, I think if I hadn't done the Brits, then I'd have gone straight to the Norwegians and Swedes, and I'd have created the scenario packs for it. But the British was, I got Team Yankee was coming along, and I jumped on the bandwagon a little bit there. Being British as well, it helps. But the principle being, I would save enough money from the Brits to be able to invest in the other cool things. And the first thing would be this Red Star White Light scenario packs for sure.
Brilliant. Good stuff, mate. Well, I hope it all goes really well. And we look forward to getting you back on the show to chat all about Cold War 3.
That'd be great. I'm really pleased to do that.
Brilliant. We'll speak to you soon.
Thanks, guys.
Cheers.
It's time to announce the winner of our latest competition. Back on episode 198, we were speaking to Craig Thompson of Tiny Terrain Models, and we set a competition to win the current collection of Craig's models. The question was, what was the first miniature rule set that Craig played? Now, it wasn't my intention for this to be a controversial question, but as it turned out, it probably wasn't as accurate a question as I might have wished. The answer I was after was actually Challenger 2. If you remember, Craig bought this set of rules. He was a young lad at the time and was struggling to make head and tail of them, but carried on anyway. However, several of you did point out that he mentioned a game beforehand, which was Car Wars, which was not strictly a war game or miniatures game. Can be a miniatures game, and certainly people play it as a miniatures game. And some people gave that as their answer. In those circumstances, what more could I do but accept both answers as being correct? Okay, so if you answered Car Wars or Challenger 2, which to be fair, everybody did who entered, then you are entered into the prize draw. So, let's have a look at who's won. Congratulations to Phil Abramowitz. Phil, if you'd like to get back in touch with me and let me know your contact details, I will get these sent to you as soon as possible. Thank you very much for entering, everybody, and we'll have a new competition for you next week. We always love to hear from you, our listeners. You can contact us in a couple of ways. You can do that via email at mailbag@meeplesandminiatures.co.uk, or you can now leave a voicemail message for us. The number to call is 0116 318 4114. Please don't, call charges may apply. So, how was your weekend then, Mr. Hobbs? I mean, earlier in the show you were saying, "Oh no, I didn't do a lot. I didn't do a lot. I played games on Saturday." That's not all you did, hobby-wise or hobby-related, was it, Mr. Hobbs?
I had a phone call on Sunday.
You had a phone call?
Well, it was a sort of Skype call.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Google Hangouts call. So I just chatted to this Yank guy for, an hour.
Hang on. I'm sorry. An hour?
Yeah, an hour. Just an hour.
Just round here, that's called a podcast, boy.
Yeah. Hi, Jay.
I'm sorry. You're just not trying.
Splitter.
Yeah. To be fair, it's called a short podcast.
Yeah. It hardly counts.
No. Obviously, and again, according to Jay, you obviously weren't using enough vowels.
I thought I'd try it out. I thought it'd be, a fun experience. It meant nothing to me, Neil.
I'm hurt. I feel so cheap.
We've been together for 4 or 5 years now, Neil. I just need to see other podcasters.
So you did an episode on your own.
Let's face it, the alternative is recording by yourself.
Yes. And I do that most days, Mike.
So when is this episode of the Veteran Wargamer due out, Mr. Hobbs?
Sometime in April.
Sometime in April. Can you tease us with what you talked about?
We chatted about Games Workshop and what our thoughts are on what they're doing now, and whether they're trying to entice the older player back.
Hang on a second. We appear to have a theme going on, because what are we recording next week?
Oh, next week we're doing the epic recording, which if people listen to this won't be able to listen to for about 2 weeks.
Yes, coming out a couple of weeks later. But we are recording next week. Yes, another podcast about a Games Workshop game. Good grief, man! What are you doing?
It's like buses, mate. Nothing happens for years, and then two come along at once.
So having, sampled the other podcast experience, with us and then gone out on your own, I mean, how long is it before
Before I do my own one.
I can't even bring myself to say it.
It'll never happen, mate. It's far too much hard work having to edit things. I see myself more as the creative, talky person who doesn't have to do any hard work.
Fair enough.
I leave that to the more technical people, like yourself and Mike.
Well.
And on that bombshell.
Yeah.
Indeed.
Which I think is the bombshell we ended last week on.
It was a bombshell we ended, yes.
To quote Jay, that is all.
Oh, right, okay. Jay, what have you done to us, mate?
Yeah, we do need to finish. We need to work on our finishes, I think. I think we need to, go for the big finish instead of the, we're sort of going to finish now. Bye. Sort of, hang on. Bye. No, hang on, I've just thought of something else. Bye.
No, it lends the podcast its very own British rustic charm.
Oh, is that what you call it?
Yeah.
Yep. And on that note, I think it is about time we said goodbye. I'm just left to say, thank you one and all for listening. I hope you've enjoyed the show. Thank you for joining me, the Luftmeister. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, cheers, guys.
Hope the teeth get better soon.
Yes, thank you.
Yes, even less talkative than normal.
Trying to get a word in edgeways, really.
Thank you, I think, to Mr. Whittaker, despite the fact you ate the cake.
I was encouraged to for its own good.
Well, thank you for joining us, and again,
You're welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Hobbs. Thank you for joining us once again from your wizardly tower in the west of the country.
Mate, Wales. You are welcome. I am guarding the west. Don't worry, the coasts are clear.
Well, yes, thank you all for joining us, and until next time, take care of yourselves, happy gaming, and we will catch up with you next week.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Meeples and Miniatures podcast. If you've enjoyed the show, why not share it with others by leaving us a review on iTunes? And if you have any comments or questions, you can always email the show. The address is info@meeplesandminiatures.co.uk. And you can also visit our webpage, where you'll find a complete episode archive, all the View from the Veranda podcasts, rules reviews, and our blog of hobby items and news, which is updated several times a week. This is also where you'll find the links to our presence on social media. And here you can follow us on Twitter or join our Facebook group. And finally, here you can also find details should you wish to support us by making a donation to the podcast. All this on the Meeples and Miniatures website, www.meeplesandminiatures.co.uk. The Meeples and Miniatures podcast is licensed under a Creative Commons Attribution, Non-Commercial, No Derivatives 3.0 Unported license. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks.